So come on in, tell me where you're from. The real reason we're going to be talking about new information on an accomplice that went with David to Santa Barbara County. So this is nothing like what we were originally thinking. This video is for adults only. Viewer discretion is advised, and everything I'm sharing is my opinion. Come on in and tell me where you are from. So the LAPD, according to Mark Geragos, and we're going to be going through this together in just a second. I want to give you the overview. The LAPD have identified a second suspect in what happened to Celeste Rivas Hernandez. This is an important breakthrough in the ongoing investigation. The development came through a sophisticated tracking method, and I believe what they used was social media accounts. They used their social media. They lined this up. They triangulated this with cell phone data, and then they triangulated that with the camera footage from the Tesla. Remember, this Tesla has multiple cameras, and we're going to talk about more about that. So put a pin in that. So this development came through sophisticated tracking methods. And so this explains why we've had this delay in the case, right, you guys? We've had this delay because law enforcement had to have probable cause to be able to get warrants for cell phones, for social media apps like TikTok, Snapchat. Those are two big apps that track people, right? Snapchat has the Snap Map feature. TikTok, we know, has like very sophisticated tracking features on it, on those apps. So they were able to triangulate that and then cell phone data. So this development came through sophisticated tracking methods that revealed connections between not just David, but multiple individuals that in this mysterious nighttime trip from LA to Santa Barbara County last spring. We still do not have a date on when this happened, you guys. So the digital evidence, though, is like cracking this wide open. Attorney Mark Geragos sat down today with Harvey Levin. We are going to go through this discussion together as a true crime community here in Reporter Room. But Mark Geragos disclosed new information during the latest episode. This is Two Angry Men podcast, speaking with people directly involved in the Celeste Rivas Hernandez David case. Now, Mark Geragos praised law enforcement's investigative work. He describes their efforts as being impressive, piecing together all of the multiple digital sourcing. And this does explain the delay. They would have to have probable cause to get the warrants, and then they would have to wait for the social media companies to give them all of the data, and then they have to go through and basically map out the data to figure out when was the last time they believed that Celeste was alive, when was the last time she was possibly alive, and then move forward from that date forward to figure out who else was involved. So I think they've done an amazing job connecting the dots in this case from what we know so far, using the cell phone data, using the Tesla data, using location data from social media apps like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, all of these things. But TikTok and Snapchat are two of the best ones if you want to track someone. So according to Mark Geragos, who was an attorney in the Scott Peterson case and other high profile cases too, the second suspect may have been involved before, during, and after Celeste was done away with, you guys. This is like just so it's important that they round up everybody who had a hand in this, because this cannot happen again. So according to Mark Geragos, the timeline suggests a potentially complex relationship between David and other individuals in the investigation, plural, and it raises serious questions about the circumstances about what actually happened to Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Please say her name, put purple hearts in the comment section. So the law enforcement utilized a combination of advanced tracking technologies, and they are building their case. We're going to go through this interview together, but I just want to give you an overview of what's going on. Detectives analyzed cell phone data, Tesla vehicle data, location data from social media platforms, and they have established a timeline of events. They have established who else was helping David, and they are identifying patterns that connect these suspects, plural suspects, to key moments in the investigation. So there was more than one person on that mysterious Santa Barbara trip, you guys. Celeste was in the trunk of the car, they believe, and they believe that there was more than one person in the in the vehicle. So get this, a central element in the investigation is focusing on this remote area in Santa Barbara County that David went to last spring, and the journey's timing and destination raised immediate red flags for investigators. And this round trip took around 2 hours and 20 something minutes, depending on, exactly what time they went there, 2 hours and 20 something minutes back. And they were there around 3 hours in the middle of the night. So based on these conversations, which we're going to go through now, both Mark Geragos and Harvey Levin independently confirmed that investigators believe that Celeste was in the trunk. She was inside the Tesla during this trip. So I do not know if she was alive or not, but let me go ahead and do a sound check. Come on in. Tell me where you're from. You can tell me what city, what state. Let's go ahead and deep dive into this. This is TMZ's Harvey Levin and famed criminal defense attorney Mark Geragos, who is probably the most famous case that I'm familiar with, is the Scott Peterson, Lacey Peterson case.
David is not the only suspect.
And David is not the only suspect. But what I am told is that at least one other suspect, it's not necessarily in connection to the murder, it's in connection to...
Let me boost the sound on this.
I think this all has to do with
Okay.
a mysterious trip to Santa Barbara in the middle of the night last spring. And I got details. What do you got?
Okay.
Okay, so before I play this whole video, I just want to do a sound check. Can you guys hear the video? Yes or no? And Jazz, I need to know from you most of all. Can you hear the video? Can you hear the video, you guys? Audio is good. Thank you, Red Cloud. Thank you for modding today. This is our head mod, Njaz, and Lori's here modding. Thank you so much. Thank you, Njaz. And I see Lori in the chat too. Thank you, Lori, for modding today. I thank you, Kathy, for being here. So come on in. Tell me where you're from, and Lori can hear it. Tell me what number thumbs up you are, and let's go ahead and go through this together.
So not only that, but you know how we've almost got whiplash on this story from, I think you were the one who had said that all of your sources had dried up like very, very early on this. And you were actually quite surprised.
Not anymore.
And the reason for that, by the way, my surmise, wild speculation, they not only got the records that support what you were saying is 100%, that he took a trip to Santa Barbara County, but they now also, and you may have reported this, I'm not in the weeds on the TMZ feed, but they've got his social media and have tied up social media with some of the trips, and they've got cell phone records that they have poured over, and they have triangulated this to the point where it's eerie. I saw this 10 years ago on another murder case that I had, but when it was in the infancy stages, they've got a chart at LAPD that you would not believe. They've got this thing down to a timeline that's almost by the minutes triangulated to the location, if you can believe that. And it's not just one source. When I say triangulated, it's media, social media, cell phone, Tesla, other, and all I'll say is other kind of GPS tracking devices, if you will. And it's really, I used to joke, or my father used to joke, LAPD is lost and presumed destroyed. They actually have elevated their game, and this is quite a feat of investigation so far.
That's fascinating. So
boy, it is, and it does really say a lot, in my opinion, for what's really going on here with the LAPD. I do feel like we do, and you guys know I have to offer commentary. Let me sit up a little bit. Just the camera. Okay, so this does tell us a little bit why there has been this delay in this case. So the journey to Santa Barbara and back, and the timing that this raises, did set off red flags for investigators who began examining the circumstances regarding this bizarre 2.5 hour there, 2.5 hour back, and 3 hour there. So both sources that are close to the case for Mark Geragos, who's a criminal defense attorney, and Harvey Levin, who is also an attorney, but is most well known for his TMZ, independently confirmed that investigators believe that Celeste may have been inside the Tesla during this trip. And to be clear, they do not think that she was alive. Let's continue on together, shall we? Let's continue on.
Let me tell you what we know, because it aligns with what you just said, that in the spring, David took a trip to a very remote area of Santa Barbara County in the middle of the night and spent several hours there. We have also been told, yes, there is another suspect, but the suspect is somebody they believe helped him dismember the body, because what we were told by multiple sources is they believe that more than one person dismembered the body. Now, I don't think they can conclude that just by looking at it. I mean, look, Jeffrey Dahmer dismembered a body completely and he did it alone. So there's some reason they're saying he had help, and it's not just the way the body was cut up. So here's my theory, and I've got a little bit of evidence on this too, but my theory is that they may have done this in Santa Barbara County. And the reason there may be another suspect is that, yes, there's cell phone data, but I think more important, there might be Tesla video. Remember, Tesla has cameras on the car.
Okay, so let's quickly talk about the cameras, because I was looking all of this up while I was watching this. So the Tesla Y has counters, camera mounted on the rear license plate. It has ultrasonic sensors, if equipped, are located in the front and the rear bumper. Remember, Celeste was placed in the front trunk of the Tesla. There's a camera mounted on each door pillar. Okay, so both doors. And then there's 3 cameras mounted on the windshield above the rear view mirror. Not 1, not 2, but 3 on the windshield. 1, 2, 3. And one of them faces into the cabin of the car. And then there's a camera mounted on the front fender. And so that is where the front trunk is. And there's a camera also mounted on the back fender. There's radar, if equipped, also mounted on the front bumper. So this gives you some idea of how the Tesla can help law enforcement solve this crime. Let's continue on. Again, we are watching TMZ's Harvey Levin and famed criminal defense attorney Mark Geragos in their podcast, Two Angry Men.
And the LAPD, we're told, has gained access to that data and clearly that video. What if there is video of not just David in the car, but a second person in the car? And then the question, do they have any evidence the body was possibly dismembered there? I'm going to tell you something, and I cannot be more specific, but there was an offhanded comment made to me by somebody connected to all of this about possibly hiding the body there. I mean, just the words hiding the body. And it was posed kind of as a hypothetical, but it's somebody with some knowledge. And so what I'm thinking is that I don't think they took Celeste to Santa Barbara County and killed her, if that's indeed what happened to Celeste. Whatever happened probably happened somewhere else, maybe in LA, and that the body was taken to Santa Barbara County, and maybe the body was dismembered there. Now, what I can't answer is, how does it then end up in his trunk? And that I can't figure out. Back in
And I believe I did figure this out. If you didn't see the live stream that I did last night, I took this apart and looked at it from David's point of view and everything we know about David and his symbolism and why he would have wanted to have Celeste with him. So if you haven't seen that, I'm not going to rehash it today, but if you haven't seen that live stream, after we're done here, go over and watch that. It's really important. And I think it's going to give you some insights into the way that David thinks, because he doesn't think the way that we think. Okay. So let's continue on.
Los Angeles. But that Santa Barbara trip is the key to this case, Mark. I'm telling you, I've been on the phone personally on this one, and that Santa Barbara trip is the key.
Yeah, and by the way, the whiplash that I've talked about in terms of the reporting on this as well, that whiplash also had to do with, at first, they weren't even sure that it was dismembered because of the degradation. And so that took a little while, which was another reason they were being so kind of tight and close to the vest, so to speak. But it wasn't just, I'm told, it was not just the trip itself, it was the confirmation of the social media. And for those who think that, and I know I've heard people talk about this, and people who are frequently on social media, they think that the phone is the only thing that is tracking you. But when you post that, whether it's posting on a phone or anything else, the use of the social media platform itself is basically something that is utilized as well. That can...
Okay, so I do have to offer commentary, and I do have commentary that I researched out for you guys on the tracking of the data. So let's go just briefly talk about that, and then we're going to get back to this. So David, we know, was very active on TikTok. TikTok also tracks people. It's not the only platform. Some of the social media devices that track you include Snapchat. They have a Snap Map feature, which when you upload photos, if you have that enabled or you haven't disabled it, it can literally tell other people where you are. The Facebook and Instagram also track you, but not as carefully as TikTok. TikTok is probably the best app for law enforcement to get data from, because it's very active in the way that it tracks people. It tracks you. It tracks people, your precise and approximate location using GPS. So it uses your IP address. It uses your SIM card, and TikTok uses network triangulation, you guys, to pinpoint where you are. It tracks nearly every, listen to this, because if you have this app on your phone, you just need to be aware. It tracks nearly every interaction that you have, including 1, what type of videos you watch; 2, how long you watch them; 3, which ones you like; 4, which ones you share; 5, which ones you comment on; 6, your search history; 7, your keystroke patterns in some regions. And so this information is used for their algorithm to serve up ads to you, but it's also really helpful for law enforcement, right? So TikTok also collects information about your device and where you are when you're using it. It knows what device you're using. It knows the model, the operating system, the network carrier. Do you use Verizon? Do you use whatever you use? Your IP address, your general location based on your IP address. So they know where you are. Are you at home? Are you at a coffee shop? Where are you are you at school? Where are you when you're using TikTok? And then it also can access GPS for more precise location trackings of you. It also analyzes your device attributes, your system settings, your sensor data to interfere with location and behavior. So it analyzes, if you have a VPN that you use, it analyzes that and tries to get around that. So unlike Instagram and Facebook, which also track you, the TikTok algorithm, and we know David was very active on TikTok, which is why I'm bringing this up here, adapts in real time, meaning that David's location and his surroundings and anybody who helped him that also was using TikTok can expose where they were within hours. And my source on that is The Guardian. Let's continue on together, shall we?
Your
Let me back
location.
this up.
And so if you
So listen again what Mark says about these
the
apps.
confirmation of the social media. And for those who think that, and I know I've heard people talk about this, and people who are frequently on social media, they think that the phone is the only thing that is tracking you. But when you post that, whether it's posting on a phone or anything else, the use of the social media platform itself is basically something that is utilized as well, that can determine your location. And so if you've got that, you've got your phone, you've got a time when you post some kind of a social media story, if you will. All of these things have now been utilized, and is one of the reasons it's taken so long, because search warrants have been executed on a number of these platforms or providers, and they were waiting to get back the information. They also clearly have yet another person that is a target of this, not just David, but they've got somebody else. And I haven't heard yet whether that person is talking or cooperating. But if it's anything like the feds, the first person in is the person who's going to try to talk or cut a deal.
Okay, so if you were an accomplice of D4VD in this crime and you happen to be watching Reporter Room today, listen to what Mark Geragos is trying to tell you. He is telling you the first person in is the one that cuts the best deal. We saw in the Emmanuel Harrow case, Jake Harrow, who's, has a history, ran in and cut a deal as quick as he could. He still is going to, do serious time for what he did, but he may end up doing less time than Rebecca, who's choosing to continue to plead not guilty in this.
Need to talk about this. So my information is that the other suspect and or suspects has to do with dismembering the body. Is your information that this could actually have to do with her death?
Yeah, and I've got a name, but I'm not going to put it out there. I've already been told a name as well. And
A name of a
Okay, so Mark Geragos has the name of the other suspect, you guys. So he knows who it is. We know that SF Investigates knows who was behind the wheel of the Tesla when it was moved. So names are out there.
of a suspect
of another person besides him.
in
And
connection with the death or the dismemberment?
But they're not ruling anything out. I mean, everything is on the table. They have kept this wide open because they believe, and they believed since the beginning, since the get-go, that there was more than one person involved, which, by the way, you and I had talked about this way back when, that it appeared that there had to be more people than just David who were involved at least, or knew something that was going on. That's still a working hypothesis. And I know that they focused in at least secondarily and have not ruled anything out as to another person.
Okay, so Mark knows who the other person is. Criminal defense attorney. So they, so for those of you that are just joining me a little bit late, we are watching Mark Geragos and Harvey Levin. Both are attorneys. Mark is a famed criminal defense attorney. The most famous case I probably am familiar with is the Stacey Peterson, Scott Peterson case that he did. And then Harvey Levin's well known for TMZ. They both have great connections and good working relationships with the LAPD. And so what they are sharing is that law enforcement has confirmed that Celeste was in the Tesla during this trip down to Santa Barbara and back. And so I don't know if she was in both ways or one way, but to be clear, they do not believe that she was alive at this time. They believe she was in the trunk. So what did they do in this remote area? I have a theory of why they went down there, and I shared it with you during yesterday's live stream. And after we're done here, please go and check that live stream out yesterday's. I think it's titled something like "The Real Reason They Went to Santa Barbara," and I tell you why. So in my opinion, my theory of why. So let's continue on. This is Two Angry Men, Harvey Levin and Mark Geragos, with breaking news in the case of D4VD and Celeste Rivas Hernandez.
I want to press on this because what you're saying, you and I have not talked about this
We
until
haven't
now.
talked about this at all.
I know.
Correct.
So my independent information from multiple sources is that the suspect is somebody involved in the dismemberment of the body. That's very different from involved in the homicide itself. So what you're getting is really important because I have not gotten a name. You say you actually have a name. I haven't
No,
gotten.
I actually have a name. I mean, there's some. I'm not. If I mentioned how, or if I mentioned a couple of things, and I don't want to betray somebody who gave it to me, but I will tell you that there is somebody that they have identified. There is somebody that they have not ruled out involvement before, during, or after. You know, there's when you do a autopsy, you talk about injuries. Is it post-mortem? Is it peri-mortem? Is it before? They haven't ruled anything out that way. One of the reasons in
Oh my gosh. Did you hear that, you guys? They don't know if what happened to Celeste was post or peri-mortem. This is really disturbing. And they know who helped. They know they have it, and they've told Mark who it is. So he knows the name of the person who is an accomplice, co-conspirator, and they don't know when some of these injuries were made, you guys. This is really, really disturbing. So trigger warning here.
Is it post-mortem? Is it peri-mortem? Is it before? They haven't ruled anything out that way. One of the reasons, in my humble opinion, that the coroner and the pathologist has not released the report yet. And, you know, there were rumblings that as we are taping this today, there were rumblings that it was going to be.
It's not going to be. We confirmed that. There was some activity on that, on the website, on her page, and her name has now been scrubbed. So it looks like there's a security hold on this.
And one of you guys pointed that out too, that you know, they had it, you know, on the ME page, on the medical examiner page, they had it as deferred, and then it's just been completely taken down. So this was the LAPD. This is what we speculated last night together, right? As a true crime community here in Reporter Room, we speculated that this was to protect the integrity of LAPD's case. And now, you know, we're getting confirmation that that is the case, that they did take it down, that they scrubbed it in an effort to protect their case. So I'm wondering, I'm going to put up a second live stream after this is done, and it's going to be a couple of days out. And for those of you that aren't familiar with my channel, that, you know, like Brian Kohlberger, I wasn't doing breaking news the last year because there wasn't a lot of breaking news. This case is a lot of breaking news, and Brian Kohlberger was initially too. So I was going live, you know, I might have a date 2 or 3 days out, but I would go live early because there would be breaking news. And it's the same thing here. So if you have not hit the notification bell, please do so. You can be notified when I go live.
Which is unsurprising.
Well, that isn't surprising because I think they do not want to release information that could jeopardize the investigation. And, you know, there is a symbiotic relationship between law enforcement and the coroner's office.
Huh?
I mean, I know
Guess
how
what? Guess what? I was told that there is a problem with this. And let me tell you what I know. That one of the sources I talked to this week was saying that the LAPD and the medical examiner have had a rocky relationship for the last few years, and that the medical examiners have been slow in giving them information. So the ME still 2.5 months later hasn't accelerated this to a point where the LAPD knows whether they've even called it a homicide, what the toxicology results are. And we talked to somebody today connected to all of this who was grousing that when there was some
grousing is another word for complaining. Okay. Grousing. So they're grousing. They're complaining that the ME is not sharing their information with the LAPD in a timely manner. There's some kind of a disagreement going on between these two offices. They better get it together though, because this is a girl. This isn't, you know, they put the egos aside and get it together for Celeste Rivas Hernandez. This is not acceptable.
Activity on Celeste Rivas's page on the ME's website today. This person groused, well, in the Matthew Perry case, we had to find out what the cause of death was from the media because the medical examiner didn't even tell us. So there you go. There's a tense relationship between the two now.
it started a number of years ago, but by the time they get to court, they will admit generally under cross-examination that their primary source of information is the IO. And that's where they get most of their information. That shapes to some degree what they testify, even though they always claim that they're independent. I take that with a grain of salt. You are right that there is a history as of late, and more so with the LAPD than the LA County Sheriff.
Right.
And that actually started under the previous administration. Jim McDonnell has been doing who's now the chief of LAPD, used to be the LA County Sheriff, has been doing a yeoman's job by all accounts to try to repair that relationship.
They better put their differences aside and not play games with this case. These people, if they're not stopped, they will do this again. In my opinion, people who, this type of behavior that David had with Celeste, this predatory type of behavior, the recidivism rate, the repeat offender rate is really, really high. So I hope that they put their differences aside and let's go on this case.
But it's like turning the Titanic. It's not an easy or an overnight.
Okay, we got to zero in on what you said because I think it's so important. So you're saying that there is another suspect other than David who the LAPD has its sights set on with respect to what happened to Celeste before, during, and after her death, correct?
Correct. And by the way, they have reverse engineered, as you know, they have the records. They know when that car was parked. So they had the outer limits of when they think the farthest out was when she could have been when she could have died. They then have reverse engineered that and have concentrated on triangulating all of the other GPS, cell phone, cell tower, social media. All of that information has been layered over in order to get, when I say triangulation, it's actually, that's a simplistic way of putting it. They actually do maps, so to speak, in layers. And so they know where the information is. They use the various techniques to try to show minute by minute where somebody is. And they've actually done that and reversed it. What they did find, however, is what I'm told, they did find information that showed that somebody knew about what had happened at that in connection with the parking of the car when David was out of the jurisdiction.
This is when the body was found.
Correct.
So do they have a name of the person?
Okay, so just to be clear, this isn't the person who drove it to its last final place on July 29th. This is after David went on tour. Somebody, remember that Christmas tree air freshener that got hung? I'm going to back it up so you can listen again. That Christmas tree air freshener was hung up. So somebody else came out and fooled around with the car after David was out of town, after he left on the 29th for his tour, which he started on the 30th with probably a tech show on the 30th. Right from there, after that, somebody went back and fooled with the Tesla
to try to show minute by minute where somebody is. And they've actually done that and reversed it. What they did find, however, is what I'm told, they did find information that showed that somebody knew about what had happened at that in connection with the parking of the car when David was out of the jurisdiction.
This is when the body was found.
Correct.
So do they have a name of the person who was involved with that vehicle?
Yes, they believe they know who it was. Yes, absolutely. They believe they know who it is.
Wow. This is absolutely huge. So not only is there somebody that went with David on this round trip, this 2.5 hour, give or take a few minutes, to down to Santa Barbara, stayed down there 2.5, 3 hours doing God knows what, and then came back another 2.5 to 3 hours, 2.5 plus, hours, give or take a couple minutes. So there was somebody in the car with David, and Celeste was in the car. Well, I don't know if she was in the car on the way down there. I don't know if obviously she was in the car on the way back because she ended up back in LA. So did they go down there to get Celeste, and was there two of them? Or did they take her down there for, some of you guys thought for nefarious purposes and then bring her back? But they do not think that she was alive at this time. Let's continue on. This is Harvey Levin, who's an attorney. He's with TMZ, and famed criminal defense attorney Mark Geragos. Their podcast is Two Angry Men.
Well, that would tell me that there is video from the Tesla showing who got in and out of that car when it was parked on Doheny Drive.
I did not cross the person. I can think.
Did he say Doheny Drive? Not Bluebird Avenue. He said Doheny. What? Back it up.
So,
Yes, they believe they know who it was. Yes, absolutely. They believe they know who it is.
well, that would
And
tell
I'm
me
not-
that there is video from the Tesla showing who got in and out of that car when it was parked on Doheny Drive.
I did not cross the person. I can think of another investigative technique which would have done this in basically once you know when that car was parked, once you know that that car had not been turned on after X date, you can then, and if you've got a pool of other people that are, once you have the call logs on the phones, you then identify all the people who are on the call logs. You then go get their cell phone information. You take that cell phone information, you get the cell tower information. You then take the cell tower information along with the call logs, and you can, I keep using the term, but you can pinpoint where somebody was when within a general area. And if they keep pinging in the same general area, that generally is indicative, depending on the load on the tower, as to where they are for a period of time. And that is one of the investigative techniques that they use to identify a second person.
So,
Okay, so to be clear, Harvey said Doheny. For those of you that are like, why does Jessica care about Doheny? Doheny is the second house that I've been showing you where I believe Celeste was being stashed. That was the second property, was on Doheny Drive. And remember, that one went back up for rent on March the 7th. And remember, David got a new Tesla in February. So this timeline is starting to come together, you guys. Let's continue on. Please give this a thumbs up. Oh, let me just tell you this. If you haven't subscribed, it's free. Please hit the subscribe button. Help a girl out. It's free and it does help me out. Let's continue on together, shall we? Let's continue on.
oh, the second person you're talking about is the person who was in some control of that car when it was parked on the street with the body inside the trunk. Do
Yes,
you
it's the person, the way I understand it is that the second person is a person who is connected to one of the last times that car was moved.
got it? So that's not necessarily the Santa Barbara trip because that was September.
Correct.
That was late August. Santa Barbara was spring.
Yeah, but understand, that gives them, once that car stops moving, once they have no data that suggests that that car had ever been moved again, they know, okay, or at least it's a working hypothesis. We don't have to deal with after whatever date that is. We go backwards. So they started moving backwards, and they then saw all of the various trips that were taken. That is what I believe they have, your source, because I don't know who your source was, nor would I ask you.
Sources on this.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
100% on this.
Right, but that would, what you're saying jives with what I've been told in terms of the investigative techniques, that what they did is reverse engineered it, if you will, from the last time the car was moved, what trips were taken, and they then focused on the trips that were taken. And my understanding is that there was a social media component to that, meaning there were posts that were made. And when they saw where the posts were made, they were then able to also determine where that was geographically. And that, my guess is, taking what you told me, that's how they pinned it to Santa Barbara County. Although the post, if you were to look at the post, you would not be able to tell because there were no markers, there was no sign, it wasn't at a hotel or a club that you could identify from the post.
Right.
It was because of the geographical location that was pinpointed by all of these other extra techniques that they have.
Okay, so they used the
maybe the most
geographical data. So sounds like maybe TikTok app, which is very good at tracking people, could have been Snapchat, Snap Map post. It could have been Instagram or Facebook, although that doesn't track you as precisely as TikTok. That one and Snap Map or Snap, which is on the Snapchat app. That Snap Map app is really good at tracking people. So is the TikTok. TikTok knows everything. They can even get around your VPN to figure out where you are. So it sounds like they use that along with cell phone data and the Tesla data to figure out this trip. So for those of us that were thinking that maybe originally this trip had something to do with a music video that David was working on, no, it did not. So this is ruling that out. This is some bizarre trip, and there, law enforcement may know why. We're still trying to figure it out. I did a video yesterday, a live stream on it yesterday, explaining what I think happened and why he went to Santa Barbara County and what the motivation was. So if you, after we're done here, please go and watch that. I'm not going to rehash it here because I just went over it last night. But let's continue on. This is Harvey Levin, who's an attorney with Mark Geragos, who's a criminal defense attorney, with breaking news in the D4VD and Celeste Rivas Hernandez case. And you can back up the chat to watch from the beginning if you missed the beginning.
Most critical question then. The person you're saying is a suspect, aside from David, who somehow had something to do with that car when it was parked on Doheny Drive in late August. Is that the person who is somehow also connected to the Santa Barbara trip in the spring?
Could be. That I didn't drill down on, and I don't know that the person knows. But what I will tell you is the reason that I push back a little, just not because I know anything, because it was just from the premise, is that the person that is the focus, the other person, is not somebody after the car was found. That would appear, or somebody close in time. It's somebody who was geographically overlaid with his location, and they are surmising from that circumstantial evidence that the two of them had a connection to either the trip or something that potentially could have been untoward.
I'm a little confused. Is that second person somebody they believe was in Santa Barbara with David?
I believe that, yes, they think at some point on the trip.
I mean,
okay, so some point on the trip. So they weren't with him the whole time. I'm confused. Did he stop and let them out? Did he leave them in Santa Barbara? Did they stay down there at some point in the trip, or is Mark just being cryptic here? I'm not really sure. I can tell Harvey's frustrated too. What Harvey's trying to find out is this accomplice that was on the Santa Barbara trip the same person who parked that Tesla the final time? Is that the same person?
that is the only thing that makes sense to me that would go with cutting up the body. That's the only
Yeah,
thing.
I don't know. By the way, I still am not convinced that necessarily was the case, because I heard stuff that made no sense. I heard other kinds of speculation that didn't make sense. I'm still not convinced that there was a cutting up. But if there was, that was separate and apart, that would be post-mortem, after death.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there
And maybe long after death.
Correct.
And that goes back to the theory I told you guys yesterday during the live stream. You'll want to watch that next. That goes back to the theory of why this was done.
And then that presents all kinds of investigative issues.
But do you understand what I'm saying? That when we were told very clearly, and again, I have this 100%, that they believe he had help in dismembering the body. This again is their theory. David has not been charged with this, but that's what they believe. And I'm thinking, well, how would they know just based on looking at the body? Because one person can dismember a body. I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer did it alone. So if one person can do it, why are they so sure he had help? And the only conclusion I can draw is, I know they believe they have hard evidence he was in Santa Barbara in spring, and that was a critical moment. And it sounds like, from putting the pieces together, that they believe Celeste's body may have been in that car. So if that's the case, The
and
only
not just Celeste's body, but a second person.
and a second person.
And
And
not necessarily, I don't know whether it was in the car. I don't know anything else. I know that the working hypothesis is that we got to the other person because of a device that was tracked.
right. And I'm thinking that's a camera from the Tesla.
And
Because
I'm thinking the opposite. Well, I shouldn't say the opposite. I would think that the camera from the Tesla could be, but I think that the more compelling investigative tool here that they
The cell phone.
use are the cell phones and the social media postings and the once you get, look, you can find out. I mean, it's frightening what you can do, and I mean it's frightening how far the investigative techniques have come. I remember cross-examining cell phone experts 10 years ago and cell phone experts 20 years ago, and then doing it this year. What they can do now that they couldn't do 10 years ago or 20 years ago is almost out of a science fiction movie. And to the point, and all you have to do is take a look at when you do share my location or you do kinds of GPS locations and things like that, but the precision with which they can do this and the ability to determine at a certain moment where you are and what you're doing by location, and then comparing that to somebody else's. So you can say somebody was within. I mean, there is a pretty good theory that you can put two people within 6 feet of each other just by using historical data from devices. But
So it sounds like somebody made a post to social media, probably thinking they were being cryptic, probably to TikTok or Snapchat, because those are the two most precise. Instagram and Facebook can also track you, but TikTok and Snapchat, because Snapchat has that Snap Map feature, and TikTok has unbelievable GPS tracking devices that track you in real time where you are, who you're with. So it sounds like they use, in my opinion, one of those two apps to pinpoint the accomplice with David in Santa Barbara County. So, now we go back to why were they both down there? Because as Harvey's trying to say, it doesn't take two people to take apart somebody. One person can do it. But, it sounds like two people did do it, you guys. So, let's continue on together. This is really eye-opening. Really eye-opening. So we can see how hard the LAPD has been working and what some of the delays have been. It's been getting probable cause to be able to have access to these warrants, and then getting the warrants, and then going through the data, and then having to layer it all together. It's a lot to go through. And he had more than one person staying in the mansion with him. So they had to rule people in and rule people out. But according to Harvey Levin and Mark Geragos, they know who the accomplice is. Let's go.
think about that for a second. That you could say, I mean, that it's been revolutionary in criminal law in the sense that when people used to say, I remember a murder case that I had many years ago where it took me forever to get the cell phone records, and I actually was able to exonerate the young man because he was more than 13 miles away at the same time that the murder was being committed. And but back then it was very crude, I should say, and rudimentary, because you were still just dealing with this idea of pinging off towers. Now you've got kind of 3 or 4 layers of, we're not just talking cell phone tower information, we're talking location where you can say this person was here within, give or take 3 to 6 feet. It's mind-boggling.
okay. So
This is what I'm saying. They have crossed the path. That's why this other person is in the crosshairs.
So
No pun intended.
I get it. So here's my question that I have not been able to figure out, and I don't even have a theory on it, that if they took Celeste's body to a remote area of Santa Barbara County in the spring of this year, and if they, say, even dismembered it there, how does the body end up in the trunk of the Tesla in late August?
And I answered this question. This was the same question that I had, and I answered it during yesterday's live stream of my theory of how this happened and how this came to be. So when you're done watching here, let's finish watching together. Go over and watch that live stream that I did last night with you guys next, because I spend 30 minutes just literally taking this all apart and laying it out for you of what this Santa Barbara trip was about for David.
Well, if it stayed there
But
and
why? Why would it
decomposed,
stay there?
that is inexplicable, and you'd have to get into the mind of whoever perpetuated this, which is always hard to do because you always say who is capable of doing something like that in the first place and what is their mind doing. But more importantly, at least to my trying to figure out what a working or a hypothesis here of a theory is, why would you drive all the way to Santa Barbara if this person, and I'm not accusing anybody, and I don't want to convict somebody pre-trial, whoever it might have been, and if they have some indication that she was taken out of the county. See, that's one of the problems with some of this kind of speculation is, while he could have made the trip, and while he could have posted outside of LA County, say for those who are not familiar with the geography here, you'd go through Ventura to get to Santa Barbara County.
It's about 100 miles.
Yeah, it's about 100 miles, 90 minutes away. And you could go post up there. That doesn't necessarily mean that whoever is posting, whoever it might be, that necessarily alive or dead, that she is with them, unless they also are transporting some device which would indicate that, or unless there is some video that shows her there.
So think about what PI, private investigator Steve Fisher told us. He said there were farm implements at the house. Just remember that.
Those are kinds of the nettlesome details they've got. They may be able to pin him outside of LA County in Santa Barbara County, but they don't necessarily know that if she, God forbid, was not alive, that she was necessarily in the car, unless they've got some video being placed in the car, or unless in Santa Barbara they have video of something being taken out of the car. Those are the kinds of questions that investigators look at.
I got to tell you, I'm thinking of three sources now, and one person just offhandedly referenced hiding a body, but more importantly, I know that the investigators view this Santa Barbara trip as a core piece of this case, and I may be wrong, but I think their operating theory now is that the body was in that car in Santa Barbara when David took that trip. I think that's their operating theory. I'm not saying it's true or not, but I'm saying I believe that based on what I know, that's their operating theory.
If that's the case, are you saying that necessarily she was alive or not alive on that trip?
I don't know, but based on putting pieces together, I think not alive. And I think that's why dismemberment, and again, I understand why you're skeptical of that term dismemberment, because the body was so badly decomposed, they didn't even know if it was a man or a woman. So I get it, but they clearly believe, and I know they believe that this body was dismembered, and I also know they believe that he had help doing it. That's their premise. So
I've had cases where decomposition was mistakenly thought of as dismemberment.
right, but that may be the case.
Push back.
That may be the case, but when you add to that they believe he had help, there's something that they say they know about dismemberment that would lead to a second person. That's why I don't think it's eyeballing the body and saying, oh, he must have had help. I think there must be some evidence of somebody actually helping him, and that's why I keep going back to the Tesla. But
I have a different theory on it than what they have, and I'm not going to go into all of it, but I'll just go through a couple of just key pieces. And so my theory on this is that, so trigger warning here, guys, this video is for adults only. Viewer discretion is advised, and David is innocent until proven guilty. I don't think David planned to dispose of her in Santa Barbara and backed out. I think that he went down there and got her, in my opinion. I think that we've heard rumors that the LAPD were investigating these claims that these shirts with the red paint on it that looked like bloody shirts that David was selling online for $35 a pop, that people, and we've heard that David bragged online about being into gore. And during the live stream yesterday, I talked a lot about the symbolism and how everything about David was symbolism. So I'm not going to rehash that today, but I think that he was using parts of Celeste. And I think that this was symbolic to him, similar to what we've seen. It was a way of him keeping her with him. And wasn't he using Celeste for his art this whole time? There's a song titled Celeste that's about her. He references his Hello Kitty girl. He was using her as his muse the whole time. So just because he did away with her doesn't mean that he stopped. I think it became even more perverse and more dark and more twisted. What's really disturbing is that there was an accomplice that was all in on this too. Usually people, like Jeffrey Dahmer, act alone. David, it sounds like, was working in tandem with someone. So who was it? And it's really important that LAPD are able to round up everybody that was involved with this, because this just can't happen again. They have to keep the public safe.
I don't know whether that video shows anything, but I know they believe that. And
well, look, there are techniques that forensically can be used for. And when I say forensically, that you get somebody to opine or give an opinion, how long has this body, I don't mean to be ghoulish, but this is the terminology how long has the decomposition been? There are ways that they can do that. I've been through this. They do in terms of, it's somewhat graphic, but there is activity. There are things that happen to the body after one day, after a week, after a month, and they can look at a body. And I've been in autopsies where somebody has presumably been dead for a long period of time, and they take samples and they opine on how long it has been, what kind of environment the body was in during that period of time post-death, and they will then try to relate back as to what happened. I mean, that is not a simple task. And by the way, I've always argued that it's to some degree more of an art than a science in terms of the kinds of leaps that you take in terms of the opining. What are the foundations for that?
And Mark Geragos does have massive experience in this. Remember, he defended Scott Peterson in the Lacey Peterson case, and Lacey and her unborn baby Connor were in the water for a long time. So there was, a lot of back and forth as to, and they never did figure out how Lacey had been done away with. And they were still not only able to get a conviction, but they were able to get the jury to impose capital punishment on Scott Peterson. Now, the capital punishment was commuted, so they never went through with that. He's serving life in prison without the possibility of parole. But they were able to make their case very thoroughly to a jury in the Scott Peterson case, even though they never were able to determine exactly how she passed. Let's continue on with defense attorney Mark Geragos and attorney Harvey Levin from TMZ with breaking news in the David and Celeste Rivas Hernandez case.
In this case, I think that there are a whole lot of assumptions that they have to do, or they have to build on to get to the number two person who they clearly have a focus on, and they're running it down, and as well they should. And as to David himself, I mean, there are fundamental issues with the investigation, which is, by the way, why I think they have not arrested him, and why they have been, at least initially, so close to the vest with the information they're releasing. There's just way too many variables at this point.
So if you happen to be watching this, the person that makes the first deal gets the best deal. So basically what we've learned so far is that there was more than one person on this trip to Santa Barbara. That is breaking news. We did not know that. There are various specific clues as to the specific location that these two people visited, how long they were there with the Tesla, because it will show how long the two suspects were there. What activities the Tesla sensor detected. For example, was the front trunk open for any specific period of time? Was the back trunk open, maybe to get tools or something else out? They're going to be looking at the Tesla cameras to determine if there are any other individuals. And we know now there was an accomplice. Now, Mark Geragos seems to think this is not related to the Tesla cameras. So maybe those were switched off. You can manually switch off your cameras. And if so, I think that could also be incriminating, right? Because whoever switched these off would be, it would be incriminating, the timing on that. I am going to go through chat and we're going to finish this together. I do want to just say thank you to Njaz for the gifted Reporter Room membership. That is so kind of you. Thank you so much, Njaz. Thank you so much. And thank you to Njaz for another gifted Reporter Room membership. We are going to continue to go through this together, but I don't want to let this go to the very last second. I do want to just extend my deepest thanks for your support of Reporter Room. It really does help out the channel a lot. So thank you so much for that, Njaz. Thank you to Anna Bartlett for the $1.49 super sticker. I'll be putting that toward my new computer that I just got. Thank you so much, Anna. That is so kind of you. Thank you, Anna. I want to welcome Lori 6395, who just became a Reporter Room channel member. Welcome to the Reporter Room family. I'm so glad that you are here with us. Welcome. And thank you, wow, to Njaz for gifting 5 Reporter Room memberships. Wow, Njaz. So that's, if you're keeping track, that's 7 Reporter Room channel memberships. So people always ask, how do I become a member? Sometimes just hanging out in the top chat and coming up and being active in the top chat. And Jazz will be presented with a list. Now, she doesn't get to handpick everybody. She'll be presented with a list of people, and she gets to choose from the list that YouTube presents to her. And usually it's whoever is the most active in the top chat. So thank you for that, Njaz. That is so kind of you. I want to extend my deepest thanks to Michael L. Colt for the $1.99 super sticker. Thank you so much, Michael. That is so very, very kind of you. I'll be definitely putting that toward the YouTube. I'll be putting that toward my YouTube computer. And let me thank Njaz for another Reporter Room gifted membership. Thank you so much, Njaz. If you got that membership or one of those memberships, please make sure you say thank you to Njaz. Thank you, Njaz. So I didn't want to leave that. We are going to do a poll. I'm curious if you think that the, Tammy says, I know they said there was a head and torso in the car. So are they, I don't know. That's a great question, Tammy. I don't know. That's what we're all trying to figure out, right? We're all trying to figure out. Let's finish this up, and then we're gonna. I am gonna check in with chat. We are gonna talk about this, and I do want to do a poll. If you think, remember those 2 masked men that were watching this, David, the movers moved David's stuff out, and one was wearing a Kevlar vest and a badge, and the other one was with a video camera videotaping. Do you think that was significant? Was that somebody trying to hide themselves from the media? Why were they wearing masks just to watch movers move out? And who was at the other end of the camera? Put a 1 in the chat if you think that it's possible one of these security guards have had something to do with this, that accompanied David and is a co-conspirator with David in going down to Santa Barbara for whatever period they did. Put a 2 in the chat if you think it's someone else. Don't name who you think it is. And I want to thank Susan Marie. Thank you so much, Susan, for the $9.99 super sticker. That is so kind and generous of you. I'll be putting that toward this computer that I'm streaming on now. Thank you, Susan. All right. So let's go through this together. I want to finish this up. This is so interesting. Now, both of these men have really good insight. They do have good connections into the LAPD. Harvey Levin said he has 3 different connections on this particular story. Mark Geragos didn't say how many he had, but he does sound like he has connections too. And so the two of these men are comparing notes to see what they can glean without exposing who their connections are. They're giving us the information that they can give us without exposing, harming the case, the investigation case into the LAPD's looking into what happened to Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Please put purple hearts with her name in the chat or in the top chat if you're watching this. And let's continue on.
So, two things. One is, I will tell you that my best source in this, I was
Is it law enforcement?
I'm not going to say. I'm not even going to say.
Okay.
I can't even go there. But I'm 100 on this. I raised the issue of the Santa Barbara trip, and I didn't understand how the body would then end up in the Tesla. And all I was told back was, don't try and use logic to understand this, which is kind of an interesting comment in itself.
It isn't, though, because like we talked about during yesterday's live stream, it's not logical because David isn't thinking the way that you think and the way that I think. He doesn't think like that. We had to get inside his brain and figure out how he was thinking about this. And I spent 30 minutes of that live stream just completely taking this apart and explaining it in the best way that I can, the theory of why I believe this Santa Barbara trip occurred. So if you haven't seen that, once we're done here, go over and watch that next. It's really an important live stream. It's probably the most important live stream I've done on this case so far.
So I want to leave you with my last and biggest question. You have a name of somebody they're looking at, and I know why you don't want to use the name, and you shouldn't use the name. But let me.
I won't do it.
No,
I'm the first guy. If I was representing,
I got it.
I'd be the first one to condemn somebody getting
I got it.
prematurely.
But I
hung out to dry.
I can ask a legit question. I think you can answer without compromising anything. Man or woman?
That's a compromise.
It's 50% of the
population.
population.
Yes, I understand.
Mark,
That's 50% of the population.
Now
Can I tell you something? Internet sleuths at this point are so good at what they do that the last thing I'd want to do is confirm one way or another.
And you guys are good. I'll tell you what, Deanna, I don't want to name too many people, and Jazz have been sending me stuff. A lot of you guys have been sending me stuff. Danae has been sending me stuff. A lot of you guys have been sending me stuff that really does help me with this case a lot. And putting all the pieces together and figuring things out. And we're all looking at this puzzle, right? We're all looking at all of these different pieces and we're all seeing it in different ways and learning about how you guys see it. And it helps me to see more of the puzzle or to look at it in different ways. And I think at this point, it's really important that we keep our minds open to new information, because I think there's going to be a lot of breaking news and information. So I am going to schedule another live stream after we're done with this one for an upcoming day. But if there's breaking news, I will be going live early. So it's not like, how I spent the last year with the Brian Kohlberger case, where I could kind of keep to a schedule with that. In this case, this is more like early days in the Brian Kohlberger case, where it was constantly breaking news and I was having to move things around and change things up to accommodate the breaking news. So thank you so much for joining me today. I know this wasn't planned, which is why you do want to have your notification bell turned on. So when I do go live with breaking news and it's not a planned live stream, that you guys don't miss it.
I will tell you is that they have closed the circle on what their investigation is at this point. I give them, and you don't often hear me say this, but I give them a lot of credit.
I do too.
For the painstaking, methodical analysis that they've done in this case. It's just so counterintuitive from what I'm used to seeing, that's why I think it's fascinating to you and fascinating to me. We've been doing this collectively for what, almost 100 years. It's really
why do you always end with that?
But it's incredible the tools that are being used in this case.
I know.
Okay, so and Jazz, is there any way, let me see if I can grab it. Let me drop the link for the other live stream. This is probably the most important live stream I've done. I'm not going to rehash it on this one, but let me see if I could grab that link really quick and just drop it in the chat so you guys can watch that one. This is why, in my opinion, they went to Santa Barbara. Let me see. Let me grab this link. There we go. I'm going to drop it in the chat right now, and I'll pin it in the comment section too. This is the link from yesterday, I believe. I hope I grabbed the right one. Let me see. Yeah, that should be the right one. It's titled, "This is Why David Went to Santa Barbara." So pretty clear on that. And this is from yesterday. Hold on, I'm trying to check. Let me move my mic. This is a must watch. Okay, there's the link. Oh, and Jazz got it faster than I did. Okay, I'll pin it in the comment section too. I'll pin it as a pinned thing. This is the link here, and it is literally titled, "This is why David went to Santa Barbara." So I take the whole thing apart for you guys. Let me move myself up out of the way. Let me check in with chat. I just so. Please make sure you have your notification bell turned on. I want to see what you guys did on that poll. I'm looking for 1s and 2s. Here we go. We got a 1. I'm looking for 1s and 2s. Jason put a 1. D4VD can't lift any weight. Another person or guy could. Yeah, good point. And we got, for our mods are putting Red Cloud, and Tanya, thank you so much for modding, are putting purple hearts. Leslie said, "The more the LAPD delays without arresting David, the more David can escape." Well, this is where I think we're at with this. I mean, it sounds like they are very close. That's why please hit your notification bell. It sounds like they're very close to making an arrest, in my opinion. And if you're emailing me, let me put this here. If you do see something like they're making an arrest, please email me. The reason I knew about this was because one of you guys emailed me and told me you're going to want to check this out. There's breaking news in the case. So I don't think he's going to be able to leave the country at this point, in my opinion, because I believe that probably by this point, the FBI and U.S. Marshals have put a freeze, potentially, allegedly, in my opinion, on his passport. Max said, Kobayashi, you could be right about the manager. Yeah, the manager's behavior, Josh Marshall's behavior, is just is stranger and stranger in light of everything that we know. The fact that he never sat down with the mainstream media to this day, said that he had to help his family grieve the loss of David, even though he says he barely interacted with David. The whole thing just is stranger and stranger. And the fact that his statement was under a TikTok, yeah, I think it's weird. Susan says, "Psychopaths are wired in a different way. They're wired without a conscience." Exactly. We can't think about what David did in terms of what you or I would do, because it's not the same thing. Jenny says, "Sorry, Celeste, that someone betrayed you." And she puts purple hearts in. Michael said, "Can you turn the camera off outside the Tesla Y model?" Yeah, you can. To turn the camera off outside, you can disable the live transmission for the cabin camera, accessing the safety. Yeah, you can do that. You absolutely can do that. But I think it's going to be, then maybe that's why they use cell phone data and social media data. It looks like somebody made a social media post, or they had their social media app. They hadn't taken it off their phone to go make this trip. And maybe, being that they're younger, it's not like Brian Koberger. Brian Koberger studied criminology. He was 28 years old when he did away with Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana. He was older. He had a master's degree in criminology. He applied for a job with the Pullman Police Department of how to teach police to use technology to solve crime. So he knew not to put certain apps on his phone. He knew which phone provider he thought was the safest, which he thought was AT&T. He switched his phone off for the time of the crimes. David was younger. He didn't have a master's degree in criminology. He wasn't studying for his PhD. He was focused in on his art. And it sounds like somebody made a social media post, or at least had their social media app on their phone. They didn't take their apps off their phone when they went. So not only do they have the cell phone data, it sounds like they have the app data, which puts them together. Bye, David. Yeah. And Jazz, thank you for modding. This is our head mod. And Jazz, along with Mike, says, "If you have any information or tips, please email me at tipsforjessica@outlook.com. That's tips, the number 4, Jessica. That's my name. For those of you that don't know, I am Jessica with Outlook.com. And I do want to say thank you so much to Nico Philly for the $5 super sticker. Thank you so much, Nico. I'm like almost Nick Dog Philly says Reddit is showing another way the manager was always with David. Yeah, we are going to talk about that on the next live stream, Nick Dog Philly. We're going to be talking about I have a couple of live streams planned. This isn't the one I had planned, but obviously this is the one that we're doing. But yeah, we're definitely going to be talking about the manager, inconsistencies in his statements. For those of you that don't know, I've been studying statement analysis. And Njaz is asking to please hit the thumbs up button. It does make a huge difference with the algorithm, you guys. The authoress Shamika Williams thinks he already left. Well, they'll be able to get him back. They'll be able to bring him back. U.S. Marshals can go get him if he left. My understanding is that he's in. This is what I know. So a speculation alert. But this is my understanding. This is what I believe. My understanding is that he is in Texas. He has not left the country. I have heard rumors that Neo, his personal assistant and friend, did leave the country, but then I don't know if he came back or not. He may have come back. He may have left the country on business. He may have been doing a job interview for another celebrity, because obviously this job with David isn't going to pan out. So he's back. But my understanding is that David is in Texas. They're still putting everything together. Michael, I don't know. They're maybe trying to round him up and the accomplice at the same time. I'm not sure, but I have a feeling that it's imminent. Tanya said, I hope everyone has a blessed Thanksgiving. Bless you too, Tanya. Michael says, this is our other head mod. Michael, thank you so much for being here. And this is our head mod. And Jazz, thank you for being here. If you're a mod, drop me a comment so I can shout you out. Tanya, thank you so much for modding. Let's see who else is modding today. Brittany put a 2. Authoress says that dent is suspicious. The dropped key, suspicious. Yeah, remember that Tesla key that was found? The unfollowing of each other. That's Neo and David unfollowed each other on social media and scrubbed their social media accounts around the same time. And authoress Shamika Williams says super sus. Michael says he doesn't know what the 1 or 2 is. We're just doing a poll. Just an informal poll. Kobayashi said the dent probably happened on that Santa Barbara trip. Yeah, I'm wondering too. And remember, he got that red Tesla in February. That helps us with the timeline. The Doheny property. And we heard Harvey Levin talk about Doheny. If you didn't hear that part, back up the chat and rewatch it. He talked about Doheny, the Tesla on Doheny. So did he have it outside his own rental house? Michael says 2. Janine, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We're not there yet, but I'll be doing multiple live streams before then. But do have your notifications on, because I have a feeling that this is about to go. This case is about to go. Tanya said, I'm sure there's quite a few of them involved. Nico says, reporter room, do you know if there's another manager? There's 2 managers. There's Josh Marshall, and there's another one, Rob M. is the other manager. And I have information on both of them that we're going to share during the next live stream. True Divine speaks a camera from the neighbor's house. Yeah, I think that may be how they know that somebody. Remember the Christmas tree ornament that Steve Fisher was talking about, that it wasn't there. The Christmas tree ornament, the air freshener wasn't in the Tesla when they were driving the Tesla from what he believes was David's mansion, or at least from that general area. He has the Tesla coming into view, and it was ultimately parked on Bluebird. It's for its final time. But he said when that was done, and he knows who was driving the car, they had their windows down. The Christmas tree air freshener wasn't in there. So what Mark Geragos was talking about, and if you didn't see it, just back it up and rewatch it. But I think what Mark Geragos was talking about was that the placement of that Christmas tree air freshener. It sounds like somebody came and fooled around and messed with that Tesla one more time. And law enforcement knows who that is too. His little circle helped. Well, at least one person in it. Yeah, there's 2 managers. Tanya's right. There's 2 managers. The red Tesla was in Josh's name. Now, Josh denies that. He says he did not. Josh's statement was I'm going to use my statement analysis. I'm almost ready to take my final on that. It's a college accredited course. And because for those of you that don't know, Peter Hyatt passed away from cancer. He was like a renowned statement analyst. He worked with law enforcement, trained law enforcement. And he came into my purview when he did statement analysis on the Madeleine McCann case for filmmaker Richard C. Hall, who made a multi-part documentary on the Madeleine McCann case. And so that's how I learned about Peter Hyatt. And sadly, he passed away earlier this year from cancer. And what a tremendous loss for his family. So we're going to go through Josh's statement. I'm going to go through it. But he always said, Peter Hyatt always said that he thought journalists should study statement analysis. So I decided I was going to do that. So I did do that this semester. Kobayashi said also David's physique wouldn't allow him to work alone. I think one website said he weighs 57 kilograms, which would only be 5 kilograms more than Celeste. Yeah, he was very tiny, 5'3", I think 120 pounds. Yeah, we're going to talk about Josh Marshall and Rob M. Hey, Max. And NJazz is letting you know we do have a Facebook group on Reporter Room. We talk about all kinds of stuff. We're doing some trivia right now, too, on trivia crimes. If you want to join in there, we also, if you are a channel member and you became a channel member during this live stream, we have a channel member group that is separate from the other group. You might want to be in both. And if you type in Reporter Room and channel members, you can find that group. Author said the casket, the fake funeral, the altar, ego, the all even more eerie now. Yeah, which is why I want you guys to go to the other live stream today. And this is probably, I'm just dropping the link again. This is probably the most important live stream that I've done as far as getting inside the mind of David and trying to look at the Santa Barbara trip from his point of view and looking at what happened to Celeste and why she was still in the trunk of that Tesla from David's point of view. So it's very, very interesting, definitely worth taking a look at. And it, so anyway, I do want to say, we're not done. I'm going to go through a couple more comments, but I don't want to wait till the very end. I do want to thank NJazz so much for being an executive producer, for all your great help and work on this. Thank you so much, NJazz, for that. Let me turn this off for a second. The bishop says, maybe Gus helped. Wasn't he mentioned in text? No, that was just a teenager. No, he's not. My understanding is that he had nothing to do with this at all. So I just want to put that out there. I want to thank our producers, Sasha Angel, George Brown, Michael L. Cole, Christy Ballantyne, and Randall Rand. Thank you so much for your support. And our channel members, I'll be updating this before our next scheduled live stream. Today was unscheduled. So if you became a channel member yesterday, this is not updated just yet. Your name will appear just like this, starting at our next scheduled live stream, which I'm going to reschedule as soon as we're done here. But I update this usually once a week. So if you want your name to appear like this, you can hit the join button. It's next to the subscribe button. But subscribing is free. Giving a thumbs up is free. And these things really do help the channel out a lot. So thank you to all of our channel members. And I also want to do super thanks and coffee gratitude to NJazz, Kami, Flojo TV, Michael L. Cole, and Bet Ken for last week's live streams, and NJazz for the gifted channel memberships and NJazz. So just wanted to go through that. Didn't want to get to the end and not have put that there. Let's go ahead. I'm going to put my email address up, and let's go ahead and take a couple of more comments. Michael says, thank you so much for the breaking news. Yeah, for those of you that have been with the channel, you're probably used to me doing scheduled live streams, and I, unless something comes up in my personal life or whatever, I pretty much stick to the schedule or very close to it. But in this case, but if you weren't with me early on in the Brian Kohlberger case, and remember, I covered that case. I think it's 3 years this week that I covered that case. If you're with me early on, there was tons of times where I went and had breaking news in the case. I think I was doing a lot of videos with breaking news in the case too. So it was a very, very different from the last year that I covered the case, where there just wasn't as much breaking news. So I was able to keep more to a schedule. In this case, I cannot do that because it is an active and ongoing investigation, and there is going to be breaking news. Janine says, I wonder what investigators found results were regarding the shirts. Yeah. And they may be waiting for a couple more things. And they're going to give all of this to the DA, and then the DA is the one that's going to bring the charges. And Jazz is saying, if you'd like to become a channel member of Reporter Room, here is the link. Michael said, I'm in LA. Yeah. So if there's a trial, will you be going, Michael? Michael says he's 6 miles from the crime scene. Anya says, yes. Michael, our head mod, Michael says, please check out our Facebook group. And Tanya's saying, please hit the thumbs up button and justice for Celeste. And she put up purple hearts for Celeste. Please put up purple hearts for Celeste, and please say her name. And Red Cloud, thank you so much for modding. Thank you to everybody for being here. Please subscribe and share. Yeah, please consider sharing this on Reddit. I cannot get this video into any groups on Reddit. David's PR machine has done a really great job of keeping credibly sourced information out of the groups on Facebook. And it's been really, really frustrating to be up against a huge PR machine that's putting out misinformation and disinformation. So if you guys can help me out with a thumbs up, subscribing, sharing this on your social media platforms, it all really helps me a lot. So thank you so much for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me. I'll be scheduling another live stream, but if there's breaking news, like he's arrested, we'll be going live.